You wouldn't believe how the rule of 3 can shape your life. The number 3 has been a very large part of my life since the day I was born. Because you see, I'm a triplet. And not only that, I'm third born of triplets. If you add up the numbers in the day, the month and the year that I was born, it adds up to 33. The house I grew up in was at 33 Jackson Avenue. And you wouldn't believe it, but when I had my own business, it was at 30 Rockaby Road, and I ran it for 30 years. My mother didn't know she was having triplets until about a month before we were born. She was so large, she couldn't fit behind the steering wheel of the car. She was offered the drug thalidomide when she was pregnant for morning sickness. We now know that this drug was the greatest medical disaster in history. Side effects were severe limb disorders such as no arms or legs. Thankfully, she did not take the drug due to her religious beliefs. When my sisters and I were born, our brother was 10 months old. My parents must have been superheroes bringing up 3 babies and a toddler all at the same time. Fortunately, we had 3 aunts who took 1 baby each over many weekends, giving my parents a well-earned break. So what exactly is the rule of 3? Put simply, it's a technique where information is presented in easy chunks of 3, so that your message is clear and focused. Brain studies show that we respond better on a subconscious level if information is given in easy chunks of 3. Just like things go better with Coke, things just feel better in 3s. If you say too much, your message could be as effective as an ashtray on a motorbike. Words have the power to move people to action more than anything else in this world, so we need to choose them carefully. It's no accident that the rule of 3 is woven throughout the greatest stories, myths and nursery rhymes in history. Who can forget the easy rhythms of the 3 bears, 3 blind mice and 3 little pigs, to name just 3. And you wouldn't believe the power the rule of 3 can have in advertising. 40 years after the iconic Slip, Slop, Slap campaign, it's still talked about today. This very effective Aussie sun protection campaign gives you 3 steps to take to avoid sunburn and potential skin cancer. You slip on a shirt, you slop on some sunscreen, and you slap on a hat. Slip, slop, slap. And even superheroes use the rule of 3. With his red cape flying, Superman is faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, and able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. And he fights for 3 things in his never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way. And how many of us have said the 3 words, "Not happy, Jan," if something hasn't quite gone as it should? This Yellow Pages TV commercial was so popular, the words are now part of our Aussie vernacular. When we're not happy, especially if something hasn't turned out quite like it should from someone else's incompetence. The campaign was so successful that "Not Happy Jan" and "Not Happy John" were used as common nom de plumes in short letters to newspaper editors. As young triplets, the 3 of us were very happy, and we played together and did everything together. We were like 3 peas in a pod. We all dressed in matching outfits, but different colours. Blue, green, red. My colour was always red. And people would ask us to smile as a clue to try and figure out which triplet we were. And you wouldn't believe it, but the same baby teeth fell out at the same time. We looked the same, we sounded the same. We even finished each other's sentences. It was like we had one combined voice. And speaking of voices, Martin Luther King had a powerful voice. When he gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, he used the rule of three and the power of repetition as the foundation to structure his speech to get his message across and move people to action. He was a pastor for 6 years at a church in Alabama before moving into politics. He had the moral authority to fight for the civil rights for his fellow African American people. He was their guiding light of hope. You wouldn't believe it, but the seminary actually taught him how to build his sermons using the rule of three. He consciously packaged up his message in simple chunks of three. This technique is called 3 points and a moral. Preachers have been using it for centuries. It's when the preacher gives 3 points and then ends with a moral. It's good for the listener because it helps them to better understand the message because there's a roadmap for them to follow. The night before his speech, Martin Luther King worked with a close group of advisors to get his speech just right. They worked all night, finishing the speech in the pre-dawn hours of August the 28th, 1963. You wouldn't believe it, but the phrase, "I have a dream," a phrase he had used many times in many speeches before, was nowhere to be found. Halfway through the speech, a gospel singer who had performed earlier that day and was side of stage shouted out to him, "Tell them about the dream." He set his speech aside and then ad-libbed the rest, using the rule of three and the teachings of the seminary. So what actually did he do in his speech to make it so memorable? The phrase "I have a dream" was used 7 times. 6 of them were at the beginning of a sentence. Those sentences were sequential. 2 of the sentences were just the phrase "I have a dream," so they were very short. The next 4 were longer sentences, and the repetition of the pattern created a mesmerizing cadence. At the end of his speech, he still used the rule of 3, but he used a different phrase and a different pattern, building up the audience to a rousing crescendo. Since 57 years ago, the "I Have a Dream" speech is still hailed as one of the greatest ever given. As teenage triplets, our career dreams were heading in different directions. But when we needed to make some good life decisions, our parents didn't tell us what to do. They gave us 3 options so that we could better decide which staircase of opportunity we wanted to step onto. As my sisters and I got older, we made different friends, we had different interests and different personalities. 2 of us may have looked very similar, but the 3 of us are like chalk and cheese and chives. We have almost nothing in common. We had found our own voice. So what's this got to do with you and me? Well, you wouldn't believe it, but whether you're at work, at home, at school, the best communicators think about how they say, what they say, and they say it in 3s. So whenever you speak, if it's really important, use the rule of 3.